Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Design Cinema. This is Fengzu speaking, and you are watching episode 93, in which you've noticed the video is greatly sped up because I'm trying a new format here to save some time so I could produce more episodes this year. And welcome to 2019, by the way. Anyways, let's jump into the video before I explain too much of the situation here of what I'm trying to do. So we'll continue from episode 92, in which we took a perspective grid from existing photographs, and I drew a quick kind of like a cyberpunk city that you see on the lower left there, the sketch. And I have one of my designers here named Yoga build it quickly in 3D. And for this episode, we'll be using these 3D renders as our basis to do the comps. So the reason why I don't do painting comps is because as we run a school here, we notice a lot of students, they jump into digital painting way too quickly before they make all the planning. And usually what happens is they'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out what to do with this painting as they're doing it. So now if you're a professional, you have a pretty good handle on what you want to achieve. Most pros have an idea in their heads of what they want to do before they even start. But for students, they're actually experimenting on the painting as they go. This will often result in, for example, missing deadlines or getting frustrated because they didn't plan ahead of time. They'll run into all sorts of difficulties, or sometimes they don't know what to do with the painting as they're 20-30% in, and spend a lot of time basically trying to save the painting. Comps is something that we've always done in the professional world because, again, it solves a multiple problems for us as a designer. One, it gives you a good starting point of what you actually want to do with this painting, and two, it lets you experiment within a very quick amount of time, because you don't want to be experimenting with the final painting. Now let me back up a little bit. Now if you're doing this for yourself and you have no time limit, you're doing this just purely for fun, you can spend a week on it, work on it here and there throughout the week, okay, that's fine. But when you're on a deadline working with clients, things have to be delivered within a certain amount of time. So you don't want to be using that time to be experimenting with clients' work, right? Because what if the experiment doesn't come out right? So comps allows us to do these really, really fast. This video in real time, by the way, was about 2 hours. So I did about eight comps in 2 hours. So in a span of a day, that's pretty fast. And having 8 comps really gives you enough information to decide what you want to do with this piece. And also for certain clients, you can actually show them comps depending on who they are. Sometimes we don't show clients comps because they want something from you as a designer. They don't want to pick it. They want to see your interpretation of what they're asking for. But sometimes some clients will love to see the comps. So imagine you could do this within a few hours and you can send it over. Now they can make a decision saying, hey, I like this color piece, I like this mood. Now you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is finish it, versus you do it, you spend 3-4 days on a painting and the client's like, oh no, I don't want it this way. The color is way too vibrant, or the lighting's wrong, or we want a daytime shot, you did a nighttime shot, etc. So comps allows us to do that. But mostly as a designer, it helps us just decide what to do before you jump way deep into it. And comps is where you spend a lot of your brain power, essentially, or your energy. I remember mentioning this before in previous episodes. A designer's brain is only active, at least for me, okay, I'm not sure about everybody, but for me, it's only active for a few hours. These few hours, I want to spend time thinking about stuff like designs, color, lighting, painting, making all the decisions that's going to burn up all your little brain cells. So after that decision is made and you're doing the final painting, I could shut all that stuff off in my brain and just concentrate on detailing. This is when you can listen to some music and kind of just check out, let your brain check out, because all the difficult decisions have been made. So comps essentially is doing that. It gives me 2 hours in this case to do a bunch of ideas. And once we pick an idea, then it's just autopilot at that point. So, and again, this is mostly for students, because students don't make the decisions early on. They generally experiment while they're doing it. So hopefully this episode will help you see a kind of a hidden side of concept art. Oftentimes when you see artist books or you see an artist portfolio, you're only seeing the final result. You're not seeing the in-between that are often hidden from students. So this hopefully will show you that. Now, what you could do is I'm going to put all this stuff online. You can find it on Facebook afterwards, the 3D image as well. You could use my image and paint on top if you want. You can make your own. But let me backtrack a bit as these comps are moving forward here. So I'm trying a new format here, which is a pre-recorded screen without audio. This way I could actually do my work stuff during the day without having to have everything quiet for say an hour or 2 hours. So this way I could answer phone calls, I could check my messages, I could talk to my staff and still record and just compress everything down to a short session. And then I'll just do my 10 or 20 minute audio on top. In the previous design cinemas, it just took up way too much time to be recording in real time with audio and video, because I have to make sure that I have no workload during that time, and it just becomes impossible as I'm running so many different studios right now. It's very hard to find the time. So hopefully this will work and allows me to produce more videos. And also we just moved to a new facilities here in FCD school in Singapore, so everything's getting set up, and this video also allows me to test, make sure all the equipment is working fine, and recording and everything is working. So that's what I'm trying to do, and hopefully that'll benefit you guys as the viewers, as I hopefully can produce more episodes. All right, let's jump back in here. So you're looking at comp number 2 here being produced. This is a nighttime scene. So I use this time to also mention using comps, you could kind of decide how long your final painting will take. The general rule is nighttime stuff with high contrast is much easier to do than daytime shots. So the first one you saw here with the one below here, the almost monochromatic warm gray, that's probably the easiest piece to do because there's almost no color information. It's pretty much a black and white value painting. And the reason why I started with that one is because it gives you confidence to jump into a painting with something that you could control. You'll notice by the end of this video here, we'll be doing some daytime shots, which is our most difficult shots to do. So I saved that to the end. I generally, for myself, I don't want to do the reverse, which is do something very difficult to start and then jump to something easier. I like to do something that's easy and then get to something difficult. It has to do with morale. It has to do with confidence. So even with a lot of years under my belt, confidence is still something you're constantly struggling with, because if you do something that's bad looking, your confidence drops to very low levels, and you don't have the mood to continue creating. So start with something simple. And if you're watching this as a student, I recommend give it a try. Do something that you're very comfortable with. For example, here I'm doing cyberpunk type of designs, which if you watch my design cinema, I love this type of a theme. So that's something I'm comfortable with, and also doing something that doesn't have too many colors. It's kind of nighttime. It's pretty easy to control the color palettes. We have these kind of very Hollywoody complementary colors going on here, right? There's kind of aqua, there's kind of blue with the orange, right? It's used in all sorts of films, especially your big budget films. They all use this color palette. The reason for that is because it's a little bit easy to do, and night times makes it even easier on top of that. So these three comps took almost no time. I think each one in real time maybe 15 minutes at most, right? And then as we move towards the daytime shots, the time gets longer and longer and longer. And you could use these comp times to decide what you want to do for the final piece. These nighttime shots, if I was to clean up, for example, the one you see here on screen, will take maybe at most 3-4 hours, for a presentable one, and maybe 8 hours to be really, really polished. Whereas a daytime one, it might take up to 2 days to get that really polished up. And you see that in big Hollywood films as well. You notice a lot of the big expensive action sequences take place during the night because it's just cheaper to make. But of course nowadays with the budget being so high, they can actually do a lot of daytime action shots, like you saw in the last Avengers film, the opening sequence where Iron Man and everybody, Doctor Strange, is fighting in the streets of New York during daytime. That's very, very expensive to do, versus if you watch the original Iron Man, a lot of the action stuff was shot at nighttime. So anyways, let's jump back to here. So I did 6, and now I'm gonna start 6 more comps. And right now you see me going through a lot of my little reference photos. These are very low resolution photos meant mostly to capture the mood. So this is an easy way to get started, which is take these mood photos and we're literally sample colors from it. But later for the daytime shots, those are actually painted directly on top of the comp without overlaying any kind of color palette on top. You'll see me doing that a little bit later. So the purpose of a comp is to do a bunch of them, right? If you're doing just 1 or 2, sometimes that's not enough. Now for professionals, again, this doesn't really apply. For pros, sometimes they know exactly what they want. So when they're going through a comp, they're kind of going after the final look they're capturing. So maybe for a pro, 1 comp is enough, maybe even 2 comps is maximum. But for students, I do recommend you to play around a little bit. Do maybe 3 at least, different directions, daytime shot, nighttime shot, a warm, a cool, right? Just play with it. This is a time when you're learning. Learning is about experimenting. It's about making mistakes, about trying things you haven't tried before. And it's okay to fail at this. Like some of these comps, I don't like it at all. By the time I'm done with it, I'm like, this piece sucks. But that's the whole purpose. The purpose is to make mistakes, to do things that you don't want, to find where your creativity is at, to find where you're weak at, to find where you're strong at. That's the whole point of it. For a student to just jump directly into a final to a final painting, sometimes that's very, very dangerous because you want this piece to be good, you want this to be finished, but yet you only have this one piece to do it. So your nerves are at the highest. You're very nervous going into this piece. You want everything to work out. So if it doesn't, where you start making mistakes, you start doubting yourself, your skills, right? You start going, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have, this is not looking good. I already spent 3 hours on this piece. It's going nowhere. And then you try to save it. Now you're 6 hours in. It still looks like crap. Now your morale is down to the very, very bottom and you don't want to continue this piece anymore. So comps allow you to kind of just do things for fun. It's kind of like having a sketchbook in which you could do whatever you want, right? I think I mentioned this in the past before. There's always like the two sketchbook. There's the one that you show, for your friends, or you're in art school or you're in school, you have that version of sketchbook. And then you have the one you keep for yourself. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, right? The one you just draw random crap in. That's actually the reality where you want to be when you're creating. You don't want to be doing fake sketchbooks, just like these comps. You don't want to be doing fake comps. You want these comps to be really what's happening in your brain at that moment. Capture the energy, capture the thoughts, and not be afraid to make mistakes. To become a professional, you have to realize that not everything is perfect when you start. Sometimes even for us, even for myself, done so many projects, sometimes you get into a zone where you're just not creating good stuff. But it's okay. We're not robots. We can't create stuff on the spot and just be a perfect replica each time, right? There are some pros out there who could do that, but I'm not one of them. I need to go through a process to create work. So these comps allow me to kind of sit back, relax. I'm not in full tension. My concentration is mostly for design and solving problems, but I can make mistakes. That's where the fun is at. If I'm doing a final painting from the start, you're very nervous and it's hard to become creative and have your energy flow through the painting as you go. So anyways, yeah, so the thing is to give it a try. Draw something you're very familiar with, copy and paste it a bunch of times. Like I'm doing about 3 comps at a time. You don't have to do this. You can separate it one at a time. It's all up to you. I'm just used to this way of working from my traditional days back even almost how many years ago, like 23 years ago back in our art center. So we used to do these on gouache boards and we'll tape out basically exactly what you see here. We'll tape out three sections on a canvas and do our comps directly on top. The reason why I like to have all 3 at the same time is because I could compare the comps to each other as I work. If I have a one at a time in Photoshop, I'm kind of isolated from the rest and I can't tell if this comp might be too similar to the other comps. The purpose is to make all of them different from one another. I'm not doing minor adjustments. I'm not doing like a nighttime shifted to the greens and then go into Photoshop and shift it to the reds just by doing the hue saturation. That's not going to help me because that's only changing your hues. It's not changing the actual lighting and the mood of the piece. So the purpose of the comps is to try all different directions. So you can see here, this is another contrast shot, but pretty easy. It's a monochromatic blue with a hint of orange, whereas the bottom here is a kind of a sunset magic hour shot where you have the shadows all in blues and the lights are coming on, but you still have the daytime shot of the city behind. So as you can see, I'm moving towards a little bit more and more towards difficult shots. All 6 of these are nighttime shots mostly, and they're not that hard to do. And once I finish these, I go, man, everything's too dark. I need to do a daytime shot to at least to see if this shot looks good in daytime, but that's gonna be hard. So we finish all the easy stuff here. Your morale is kind of okay. You're like, all right, this is not too bad. Let's try some daytime shots. So I still use reference images to give my color palette to set the mood, but instead of overlaying these images on top of the 3D comps here, I'm gonna paint it directly by eye. So you can see me doing it pretty soon. Now I'm still sampling colors here and there, but it's half and half. It's color sampling and then painting, color sampling and painting. So I put the comps, the references directly in my image here, so that way I don't have to basically look at the comps to the right or to the left here. So you can do the same thing. When I'm doing comps and roughs, don't worry about presentation. Don't worry about any of that. make the canvas or make everything easy for yourself to work. So here, for example, I have the reference image just below the canvas that I'm working at. You don't have to have it on a separate screen. You don't have to have it to the side. Just put it all in one piece or make your canvas really huge and work out all at the same time. It's about having that freedom of creativity, the freedom of just doing whatever you want to capture the design that you want versus making everything perfect and having good layer management, right? My layers are crap when I'm doing this kind of stuff because nobody sees this process. This is completely your brain on paper. And when you're thinking, you don't want anything to stop that process from advancing. All right, so let's jump back here. This is a daytime shot here. I'm sampling kind of a multitude of references you see below here, trying to do this kind of pastel-ish daytime shot with the shadow coming in from the left there. So in the original 3D, the lighting actually came from the right, but it's okay. It's a comp. It doesn't matter. I could change the shadows quite easily because the shadows that Yoga rendered here for me is not that heavy. He didn't use a heavy shadow. So sometimes we actually have 3D render directly as a GI render, which is a global illumination that doesn't have a strong shadow. That way we could change everything up. But that's later. Maybe we could talk about that in the episode 94, is it? Yeah, 94. So here is just these 3D served purely as a backing. Now you don't even have to have 3D. So this is kind of the pipeline I have in my studio in which we produce quick drawings and then we have a 3D comp generally built within half a day to a day, and then we use that as our what you see here doing comps. And if it's good, we could then apply that lighting directly in 3D and gives us about a 50%, a 60% return already in 3D, and then we finish it. So that's kind of the way a lot of artists or designers are doing nowadays, especially you see that in Hollywood when you use 3D is probably about 70 or 80% of the production process. And now, but that's not required. Especially when you're learning, you could do this on a piece of paper. I mean, not paper, but you could do this on a sketch in Photoshop. You don't have to have this 3D. But if you do know 3D, obviously it helps because in our industry, we're not really artists, right? We don't need to create everything from scratch. If the tool is viable and the tool is fast, then we use that tool. And in the case of concept design, 3D is now an intricate part of our creative process. In my studio in Beijing, for example, we use about, like I mentioned before, about 80%, maybe 70 to 80% is done in 3D first, and then we finish everything off in Photoshop. So anyways, back to this. So now it's a second daytime shot here, adding a little bit of green just to see what that feels like, some grass, right? So it's not super techy and kind of this classic cyberpunk, which is always see the blue and the purples and so forth. So let's try that out and see what that looks like. I was going to do a 9th image in snow, but I figured, let's not go with the odd number. Let's just go for 8 here. So it's nice and symmetrical as I present these. And here I'm just kind of copying and pasting all the comps together on a big canvas. So what I could do here is now this is real time. I'm about 2 hours in, right? So I could spend another maybe 1 hour, give me about 3 hours. I could clean these comps up just a little bit more, and these comps then becomes presentable to a client or art director or director, whoever you're working with. So just a little bit of cleanup, 1 hour, that takes about maybe 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes each, right? That's enough. That's enough to clean this up, and we could then present that. So I'm just creating a master canvas here, and I also reduce the resolution down just a bit. The original was about 10,000 pixels across for these, or about 5,000 pixel per comp. I reduced them down to about, I think, 3,000 pixel each. So anyways, this is a really quick episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll put all these images up on Facebook. And yeah, it's pretty quick, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in episode 94. This is Fei Zhu signing off.